The Demon Core, May 21, 1946, New Mexico. It looked like an ordinary metal ball, but it could kill everyone in this room. Scientists called it the Demon Core, one of the deadliest objects ever created. On May 21, 1946, Louis Slotin began one final demonstration. Only one screwdriver separated absolute safety from a deadly chain reaction. Then, something unbelievably small changed everything in a single heartbeat. The screwdriver slipped, and a terrifying blue flash filled the entire laboratory. Nobody moved. Everyone knew those few seconds could decide who would survive. Without thinking twice, Louis pushed the sphere apart and stopped the deadly reaction. His friends were alive, but Louis already knew the radiation had reached him first. Doctors rushed him away, but no medicine could reverse such intense radiation exposure. Every passing hour became harder, as the invisible damage spread throughout his entire body. 9 painful days later, the man who saved everyone finally lost his own battle. After that tragedy, dangerous experiments would never be performed the same way again. One life was sacrificed, so 7 others could return home to their families alive. Real heroes rarely wear uniforms. Sometimes, they simply refuse to run away. And this was only the first story. History still hides even darker secrets ahead. Chernobyl disaster, on April 26, 1986, Ukraine. Everything looked perfectly normal, until one ordinary night changed the entire world. Inside the control room, engineers prepared a routine safety test nobody feared. To continue the experiment, several critical safety systems were quietly switched off. Then the reactor became unstable, and every warning light suddenly came alive. Nobody realized they had only seconds before one of history's worst disasters began. The reactor exploded, launching fire, graphite, and invisible radiation into the night sky. Those glowing particles looked beautiful, but touching them could mean certain death. Firefighters rushed in, believing they were battling an ordinary industrial fire. They never knew the burning graphite was releasing deadly radiation with every passing second. Families watched the glowing sky, unaware invisible danger had already reached their homes. The evacuation finally began, but thousands had already absorbed dangerous levels of radiation. Within hours, an entire city became silent, abandoned, and frozen in time forever. Radioactive clouds crossed borders, carrying contamination far beyond the Soviet Union. Thousands volunteered to contain the disaster, knowing many might never fully recover. Chernobyl still stands today, reminding humanity that small mistakes can carry unimaginable consequences. But this was only the second story. The next experiment would shock the entire world. Castle Bravo nuclear test, March 1, 1954, USA. This peaceful island was only minutes away from becoming the most dangerous place on Earth. Scientists believed they knew exactly how powerful this nuclear explosion would become. Everything looked under control, until one tiny calculation proved completely wrong. Then the countdown ended, and silence lasted for one terrifying heartbeat. The blast became far larger than anyone predicted, shocking every scientist watching nearby. The explosion released over twice the force experts had confidently expected before testing. Even islands far away felt the violent shockwave racing across the endless Pacific Ocean. White ash drifted down like snow, but every tiny particle carried invisible danger. Children played beneath the white dust, never knowing it was silently poisoning them. Far away, fishermen watched strange white powder fall gently onto their boat and clothes. Hours later, their skin began burning, revealing the invisible damage already spreading inside. The radioactive cloud traveled hundreds of miles, reaching places nobody expected it to reach. Even the scientists stood speechless. Their calculations had underestimated nature's terrifying power. Entire families were forced to leave their homes, unsure if they would ever return. One explosion changed thousands of lives, proving science can save or destroy humanity. Our journey isn't over yet. The next story reveals an experiment no one expected to survive. The Doctor Who Drank Bacteria, July 1984, Australia. This doctor risked his own life because nobody believed what he had discovered. Doctors blamed stress for stomach ulcers, and nearly everyone agreed with that theory. But he saw something different, tiny bacteria living where nobody expected life to exist. His colleagues laughed, insisting bacteria could never survive inside the human stomach. So he made an unbelievable decision that shocked everyone around him that day. He lifted the glass, filled with dangerous bacteria, and drank every single drop. Everyone watched in complete silence, waiting to see what would happen next. Days later, the symptoms appeared exactly as he had predicted from the beginning. The infection spread quickly, proving his body reacted exactly as he had predicted. Every laboratory result confirmed the bacteria were responsible for the painful stomach disease. The same doctors who laughed before now stood speechless, staring at undeniable scientific evidence. Soon, millions of patients recovered because doctors finally treated the real cause instead. His discovery transformed medicine forever, changing how doctors treated stomach ulcers across the world. Years later, his courage earned medicine's highest honor, the Nobel Prize for his discovery. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs begin when one person refuses to accept popular opinion. Our next journey leads to a place where speed itself became the greatest. Bikini Atoll nuclear test, July 1, 1946, Marshall Islands. This tropical paradise looked perfect, but it was chosen for something truly terrifying. Soon, warships arrived, carrying scientists and weapons unlike anything seen before. Families were forced to leave the only home they had ever known forever. The military filled the empty lagoon with ships to measure the explosion's destructive power. Animals were placed aboard the ships to study how nuclear blasts affected living creatures. Then the countdown reached zero, and the peaceful island disappeared behind blinding light. The explosion shook the ocean itself, sending an enormous wall of water into the sky. Massive warships were tossed aside like toys, proving the unimaginable force of the blast. When the smoke disappeared, the ocean itself seemed strangely silent and lifeless for miles. Many families could only watch their homeland from far away, never allowed to return. Radioactive contamination spread far beyond the test site, reaching islands across the Pacific. Years passed, yet many homes remained empty, waiting for families who never came back. One beautiful island became a permanent reminder of humanity's most dangerous ambitions. Every experiment teaches a lesson, but some lessons are paid for by innocent people. Our next destination proves that sometimes the greatest experiment is risking your own body. John Paul Stapp, The Human Rocket, November 13, 1999. Imagine sitting on a rocket, knowing the stop might be deadlier than the speed. John Stapp volunteered because nobody else was willing to take the deadly risk. The engines ignited, shaking the ground before the experiment had even begun. Then the rocket exploded forward faster than almost any human had ever traveled. Within seconds, he reached breathtaking speeds that pushed every limit of the human body. Then came the impossible part, stopping almost instantly without tearing his body apart. For several terrifying seconds, nobody knew whether John Stapp had survived the impact. Against every expectation, he opened his eyes and slowly climbed out by himself. His injuries looked terrifying, but the experiment had given scientists priceless information. Those results completely changed how scientists understood crashes and human survival forever. His sacrifice helped improve seatbelts that would later save millions of people worldwide. Every safer car today carries a small part of John Stapp's incredible courage. Sometimes true heroes never fight wars, they simply test the impossible for everyone else. The next time you buckle up, remember the man who risked everything for your safety. But the strangest experiment in history wasn't about speed, it was about human behavior. Our final destination reveals how ordinary people became monsters in only a few days. The Stanford Prison Experiment, August 15, 1971. This prison looked completely real, but every guard and prisoner was only a volunteer. They believed it would be a harmless psychology study lasting only 2 short weeks. One group became prisoners, the other became guards. Everything changed almost immediately. Within hours, friendly students began treating each other like real enemies instead. The prisoners grew frightened, while the guards became strangely comfortable with their power. No one expected ordinary people to change so dramatically in only a single day. The emotional pressure became so intense that some volunteers completely broke down mentally. The experiment slowly stopped feeling like science and started feeling frighteningly real. Even the researchers became trapped inside their own experiment without realizing the danger. After only 6 days, the situation became too dangerous to continue any longer. The experiment ended early, but the psychological scars remained with many participants forever. The real question wasn't who they were, but who any of us might become. The most dangerous laboratory in history was never a building, it was the human mind. 7 experiments. 7 unforgettable lessons. Each one changed the world in completely different ways.